AM radio problem, but with his microphone,
the one in the studio,
it keeps falling on you, man.
It's not staying up.
If you pull this back, like this little thing, if you push the mic inward, it might stay. Okay, never mind.
That didn't do it. That did not do it.
I don't know how Kling normally
What's the problem here?
has it set up.
Can you just tighten a bolt or something?
I've tried. It's not the actual microphone. It's the stand part that will not stay extended out.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I see several bolts on there. Can we not just tighten one and try to solve the problem that way?
I don't know. This has been going on for a couple weeks, man. It's been going on for a couple weeks, but we'll make this work for this segment. It's very awkward right now, but it sounds fine at this point.
Yeah, you look super uncomfortable.
It's not comfortable. It's going to have neck problems by the time this segment's over. So I don't know. We'll figure it out. But you guys can hit us up on the J Southland Tow Service text line.
I'm just going to move the camera so they can see your face.
586-7610 if you guys want to interact with us. I am looking forward to talking to Danan, though, because he's heading out to Germany. He's going to be on the Chiefs Radio Network. So is Kling. I'm excited for them to head out to Germany and experience that. But I want to get his perspective on the wide receiver room as it stands and going up against Tyreek Hill. What does he think that is going to be like for this Chiefs secondary and the entire defense, really, as Tyreek Hill, we know, is capable of a 100-yard game and a 50-yard catch just like that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it is the biggest return to town that I can remember in a long time. And from this end, Gold, it's coming with the villain angle. Right before, we're having different conversations. We remember the Hosmer return when you were happy Hosmer was returning, slightly different vibe. This is the villain return, right? Little bit different. He's coming back. He's disliked because he talked all this trash and said all these negative things. He was speaking to the media today and said they're going to get that working no matter what, and even called it bulletin board material. That's the level of confidence he has going into this. But, I mean, it's going to be a reminder of what Tyreek Hill was capable of doing in his time here in Kansas City. But I'll be honest, it would be sweet if not only do they get this game, but they hold Tyreek in check. They have held big-time wide receivers in check this year. No one has held Tyreek Hill down. If they are the one team that figures out a way to slow him down in a victory over the Dolphins, put themselves back at the top of the AFC all by themselves, be sweet. It'd be sweet to do that to Tyreek a little bit.
I mean, every Chiefs fan is hoping, right, that not only do they beat the Dolphins, but, along the way, Tyreek Hill has one of his worst games of the season. I mean, that would just be a perfect
that's the dream scenario.
That's the dream. I don't know how realistic both are happening. By the way, all that matters is the Chiefs win, even if Tyreek Hill has 140 yards. But his over-under is set at 91.5 yards, and that even seems low. I mean, that's how special of a wide receiver he is. But, boy, I mean, I would rather Jalen Waddle go for $180 and 2 touchdowns, clearly, than Tyreek Hill going for $180 and 2 touchdowns.
I am kind of bummed, I'll be honest. I'm a little bummed that this game isn't at Arrowhead because
Sure.
I wanted to see the visceral, getting under his skin, loud, because I don't think it would have been a cheerful. I don't think they'd have been like, yay, Tyreek's back.
No.
I think they'd gotten after his ass a little bit, and that is what I was rooting for if they had returned to Kansas City. So I'm a little bummed this game isn't in Arrowhead. I'm still very excited we get it, but as you know, when is Tyreek coming back to Arrowhead? He's claimed he's not playing after this contract.
Well, if the
take
Dolphins,
on Miami every year, they have to win their division. Chiefs win their division, then maybe we're having a different
it's actually
conversation.
not that unlikely. I mean, if the Dolphins win the AFC East, the Chiefs are going to win the West. They're going to play each other next year. Now, I don't know where it'll be, but there's a decent chance they actually are playing each other next year. The Dolphins are trending towards winning the division, although they got a lot of work to do still. The Chiefs are going to win the AFC West, so there's actually a chance they play next year. But Tyreek Hill agrees with you, and I think a lot of Chiefs fans that, it kind of stinks that this game isn't being played at Arrowhead.
I was kind of pissed about it, man, because obviously I got so many friends. I got family there. One of my sons is there, so just the energy, man, that, feeling that energy in Arrowhead would have been next level. But obviously I understand that the NFL, they want to be more global and they want to send, 2 of the best offenses over there, MVP, two MVP quarterbacks, dynamic offenses, and it's going to be a good game, so it's really good promotion for them. But going back to Arrowhead, it would have been sensational.
We all understand why the NFL loves this matchup. And again, it was set in the offseason. We both, probably in most felt like both teams will be, decent. I don't think anybody thought they'd both be 6-2. And it'd be the premier game maybe of the entire NFL season, considering they're both and the same conference and everything like that. But Clark Hunt yesterday was kind of asked, like, can you go into detail? 2 days ago he was asked about the games that maybe you blocked, and he's like, I'm not gonna go down that road. But there was a lot of reporting. And I think Peter King mentioned it when he was on with Carrington earlier in the week as well, and it's kind of what we all thought, which was that the Chiefs did not want to give up the Bears game.
And they knew they weren't going to get the Bears in Kansas City for another 20 years.
It was going to be a while, and so they wanted the Bears and their fans. And then you started to go through. You have to get approval to have a divisional game there, and none of the other division opponents were going to want that either. And then you started to go through, and it was going to be like Philadelphia. Well, are they going to really put the Chiefs, Eagles,
Buffalo, Cincinnati?
It was going to be that. And so then it narrowed it down to
Detroit,
the Lions and Chicago, or Lions and Miami. I'm sorry. And so, I think we all would have agreed. I'd rather this game be against Detroit and the opener have been against Miami. Duh. It's going to be all right. It's going to be pretty cool. But, yes, of course, I wish everybody was able to go out to Arrowhead this weekend and boo Tyreek Hill and just that almost hockey-like atmosphere maybe that you could have had.
I think that the problem with, and I guess this is what adds some extra juice to it is, we all have a buddy, right, you hang out with, you play beer pong with, you play whatever little game. There are friends who you play a game with, and you're just like, oh, yeah, let's play another game of Washers, and it doesn't seem like a big deal. And then there's people who beat you in something, and they bury you in it. Tyreek is going to gloat a lot if he gets the win in this game, which makes me want the win so much more because the Chiefs won't. The Chiefs will just be like, oh, must have just had a good game. They'll do the little, sidey, cheeky, ha-ha, guess we figured it out thing. Tyreek will be doing triple backflips off of the, whatever that Chief ship is, the championship.
Yeah.
Or whatever in his celebratory win over the Chiefs. I can't take it. I don't want that. This might be one of the few times they actually take on Tyreek. And I'll be honest, it should terrify you. You saw Tyreek Hill in Kansas City long enough and his ability long enough to know that facing Tyreek should send a little shiver into your spine about what happens if he goes for 203 touchdowns today? Because that is plausible.
Yeah, but if the Chiefs,
moment.
it's right. But also, if we've seen some games where Tyreek Hill went off and they still lost.
Yes,
there in Miami. I mean, if you go
they
through,
lost the Cincinnati game. So they had a huge game.
Tyreek Hill, the opener, right, had 215 yards and they won by 2 points against the Chargers. He had 157 yards in the game where they won by 50 against Denver. In the losses for Miami this year, I will say this though: in the losses the Dolphins have had at Philly a week or so ago. 31-17 loss, he had 11 catches for 88. In the loss against Buffalo, he had just 3 catches for 58. Those are the 2 losses that the Dolphins have this year. The last game that in a win that he didn't go for over 100 yards was one time, New England. Week 2, 24-17 win, 5 catches for 40.
So he has 1,000 yards, man. He's good for a big number at times. If you hold him down, you're winning. If Tyreek Hill has a 5 for 54, this is a dub. I don't have any, his stat line will not determine the win or the loss alone unless it's a low number, if that makes sense, right? If it's a low enough number, there's no way I think Kansas City's losing this
Did
game.
You also notice in that cut I played that Tyreek Hill, he was talking about, it's a great quarterbacks, two MVP quarterbacks. He means Mahomes won twice, right? Let me play that again because I don't know if he was confused, if he just lost track.
Just the energy, man, that, feeling that energy in Arrowhead would have been next level. But obviously I understand that the NFL, they want to be more global and they want to send, 2 of the best offenses over there, MVP, two MVP quarterbacks.
He was definitely talking about Mahomes first, right?
At first he was, and then he wanted to cover for his guy. Tua hasn't won an MVP yet. 2 MVP quarterbacks. He hasn't won it.
Maybe it just means
not
MVP
yet.
caliber.
He was looking out for his guy.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's all.
Mahomes has got 2 MVPs. Tua has 0, even though Tua and Patrick Mahomes are 2 of the favorites to win MVP right now.
Any more concern? Tyreek joined the media again today, and he had said that both him and Alec Ingold, who's the fullback for Miami, were still complaining of tiredness.
Yeah.
And the clock screwing with them a little bit. Little worried that maybe... Because they've got a few more days to sort it out in their brain.
They are there 3 days earlier.
I've never traveled internationally to that would throw me off that much from a jet lag perspective. So I have a really hard time conceptualizing just how tired or just newborn baby tired, right? Where you can still function and your life still exists. But yeah, there's times when you're up from 1 to 4 in the morning And then you still have to go to work the next day, even though your kid didn't sleep. What level of tired are we talking about? Because I've had newborn babies. I am familiar with that level of tired.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people have said if you sleep on the plane and you stay on like the normal schedule to a certain extent, then you'll be all right. But I don't know. I haven't flown out of the country before, so I'm not sure. Just asking the wrong guy on that. We mentioned just yesterday the trends. I don't think you can 100% say leaving early helps you and 100% leaving late helps you. We've gone through it. Sometimes the better team just simply wins.
Yes.
I'll have the That Betting Show podcast out later today. We went through the numbers in international games. How do favorites fare? And they not only win, but they cover a majority of the time, right? So sometimes it's just the better team. Now, who's the better team in this game? That's up for debate for a lot of people.
The Vegas favorite.
They're down to 1.5-point favorites. They were 2.5-point favorites.
I'm getting tempted to bet it.
Yeah. No, I'll just tell you, I'm going to be picking the Chiefs to win this game on Sunday.
We have to save that for Fridays.
I'll give you the exact score, but I mean, I think the Chiefs are winning this game. So the bounce back game is real for the Chiefs. I really believe that. We've seen it. It's not just some made up thing. It has happened. We went through it yesterday. The bounce back games for both Reid as a head coach, for this offense. Let's not forget, and we'll get to this in about 15 minutes. The Dolphins have a lot to prove still to us and to a lot of people that they can step up to the championship caliber team. They have not done that so far this season.
I will
we'll talk
say,
about that a little bit more.
In like going through and really watching the Chiefs again, I'm more and more convinced that Denver game's an anomaly. That's a one-off, man. They don't play like that very often. That's not indicative of who they are. Maybe some like, hey, they're not as good offensively as they have been in years past, but they're not that bad offensively. They're not that lost. They're not 5 turnovers lost. They struggled more on defense than I've seen at any point this year. That was the first time any running backs has gotten a real hold of their offense. They got beat a couple of times in the red zone. I mean, that's not who they've been at any point this season. That game's an anomaly. It's a one-off little weirdo game in which the Chiefs played incredibly poorly, which they're good for once a year, once every 18 months, whatever you want to chalk it up to be. They're only good for it about once a year where they completely sleepwalk through some drudgery nonsense and look awful. I think it feels doubly bad to Chiefs fans still now looking at it because you were just so used to beating them. You had beaten them 16 times in a row. Of all the times we talk about trap game and people send that stuff into the text line, they didn't even consider Denver in that mix because of it. That's an anomaly game. I just don't think that's who they are.
I agree with you. I really do. Only play devil's advocate a little bit. Couldn't you make a case, though, that offensively was that the norm more? Not the turnovers, but that the other, like the Chargers the week before. And I agree with you. I'm just playing the other side for a second because I think there's a point to be made. Could you say the 31-point outburst against the Chargers and the 41-point outburst against the Bears, those are the anomalies?
I mean, look at the across the board. What is more average here? Patrick Mahomes throwing for 240 yards or 300? 300, right? Sure.
Of course.
Pacheco running for 40 yards or running for more like 70 or 80? 70 or 80. Travis Kelce only getting 58? No, that's not the norm. There's just too many parts of their offense where I would say, no, that's more in line with who they are. And if you look at the fact that they let up 24 points, they held Russell Wilson again to less than 120 passing yards. No wide receiver destroyed them. Even though you're like, hey, to the running backs, they got a little action in there. It felt like they got a little bit of room. 27 carries for 85 yards. He averaged 3 yards a carry. I'll be honest, you can live with those averages. No wide receiver had more than 50 yards. You can live with that. The only reason Denver even got to 24, Kansas City should have won this game like 17-14, even as bad as they played on offense, had they just limited the turnovers to like 3. That's it. The reason it's an anomaly is that it was a 3-turnover game. Denver scored 24 points only because the offense played so hilariously bad. It opened up the thing. If you actually look at the way the defense played, I don't know how you could complain. They had 4 sacks. They held them.
Problem.
Yeah. They had 4 sacks. They held them to under 100 yards rushing from their lead rusher on 27 carries. No wide receiver beat them. They were bad in the red zone a little bit on defense. I'll say that maybe that could come back to the norm. And they just gave Denver every short field imaginable. I don't think that that's like, oh, they're falling apart. I just think that game is like a standalone. We'll look back at it in like week 17 and we'll say it didn't even matter to what you think they're going to do in the postseason.
I agree with you. I think that's where it's likely to trend when we fast forward to January, that we will look back and it'll be that. This will be the Colts game. This will be the Titans game this past week. And that's why it stands out. So many times these terrible losses and performances stand out because there's usually not that many of them. That goes back to the snowball effect that hasn't happened, fortunately, when they've had those type of losses the week prior. They typically bounce back. When Patrick Mahomes in the offense has 20-point performances, usually they break out the following week. I mean, that has happened multiple times now under Andy Reid and with Patrick Mahomes, both from a team as a whole cleaning up the stuff. Less drops the next week, fewer turnovers the next week. But there's actually numbers that have shown in Mahomes' career, the week after they score 20 points or less, which is what just occurred, he covers 9-3. They're 1.5-point favorites, so just win. He 9-3 against the spread. He's probably I didn't look. He's probably better than that just winning outright. He might be undefeated, by the way. I don't know. Maybe. I have to check. But
because that's just covering the spread.
He's 9-3 against the spread when the offense the week before scores 20. My guess is it's probably like 11-1 or 11-2 or something, if not better.
Well, it's no worse than 9-3, which for sure.
He might be undefeated. He might be undefeated the week after his team scores 20.
Well, I can tell you right now, there's at least one more win because I guarantee you when they scored 20 against the Giants Last year, they scored 20 against the Giants. They won 20-17. A week before, they were really miserable in offense and scored less than 20. That spread was probably more than 3 against the Giants last year or 2 years ago. That's probably at least one win I can chalk up. So, yeah, probably at least 10-2, maybe 11-1, maybe 12-0. They're too consistent because they possess, I think, arguably right now, the best coach in the NFL. I think you can make an argument that as it sits currently, I don't want to talk about historically or anything else. Just if you lined up every coach in the NFL and ranked them 1 through 10 right now, Andy Reid is going to be 1 or 2.
I don't think there's any question. He's the best coach in the league. So I don't think there's any question.
Belichick's star has fallen quite a bit the last couple of years because of the job he's done with Mac Jones, which makes this conversation easier. You'd have to be a big Kyle Shanahan guy or whatever, right? But he's in the top 2.
No, not Kyle Shanahan. The guy that's 0-38 when trailing in the fourth quarter by 8 points or more.
That ain't great. It's
not him.
But they just don't go through this very often. I just go back and I watched that game and I saw that. I did see Sky Talked yesterday. We didn't carry it because, takes up a lot of time, I guess. I don't know. Did you want to hear from Sky at the moment? But I was asking myself a question, and I'm curious what your answer is. Because I think that I'm on the opposite side of most people. If I made you take for the final 9 games who has more yards in the second half, Sky Moore or Kadarius Toney, what's your answer?
Ooh, boy. Well, half the battle is getting opportunity, right? Half the battle, and then the other half is producing and catching wide open passes in the end zone.
So far, one guy's better at getting opportunity. They're both bad at producing. So
yeah, my answer still will be Sky. Before the season, it was obviously Kadarius Toney, and I still don't know why he's not getting more opportunities. But you got to get the opportunities. So as much as I've told you this week, we all have probably agreed that Sky Moore snaps need to go down and open up opportunities more for continued Rashee Rice. Heck, I'd like to see Richie James get back in the fold in a couple weeks, see what happens, because we haven't really seen him truly have an opportunity to do that. My answer here will be Sky, just because he's getting the snaps at least. Kadarius Toney is not even getting opportunities. And one thing we did see, as much as we focus it on the drop in the end zone, he was open in the end zone. Like, you know what I mean? So that says something about the question you're asking, which is who could have more yards in the second half of the season. I'll go with Sky Moore. I'm not overly confident in that, but I'll say Sky Moore.
I just can't remember, but 3 passes that were even thrown at Kadarius Toney. He has had the most unremarkable season ever. It's just you can't even remember a play messed up. You're like, are they even throwing you the ball? My answer is still Toney. The big reason why I think at this point
I remember a play where Toney messed up.
When you get,
Week 1, that pick 6. Yeah. That's the one I'll remember.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
I will remember that one.
Yeah.
that one I will remember, yeah.
That one's that one cost him just as much as the Sky Moore. Worse, actually, because they definitely win that game. Because that was going to be a first down, too. Yeah, okay, that one's pretty bad. But here's the truth. I think once we get to this bye week, they're going to have to reevaluate the wide receivers. And I don't think that there's any way, based on the production versus snap count, that they're not going to come to the conclusion that they have to take snaps away from Sky Moore and give them to someone else. And when you start asking who to divvy them up for, I think it's a few more for Rashee Rice, a few more for Justin Watson, and a few more for Kadarius Toney. My guess is that they're going to try to find a way to use his athleticism again. And while it hasn't worked yet, and I think sometimes because of screw-ups, which Travis Kelce talked about in his podcast yesterday, some of it is the screen pass in the red zone last week, the Kadarius Toney one. He ran the wrong way. That run could have worked. He screwed it up. The play call itself, in retrospect, actually wasn't all that bad.
But are they just going to use Hardman in that more? Like, you mean that's my issue? Like, where do the snaps come from?
Yeah, I just think that they're still more invested in Kadarius Toney than they are Hardman. They got a full extra year after this one. They traded a third-round pick. Like, I just feel like they've got something on the line to find out whether or not this guy's going to work in their offense.
I would push back. I get what you're saying because they, as an organization, were telling national reporters that Toney was their number one. But as far as actually invested, I mean, they spent a homegrown second-round pick on Sky Moore. I would argue they're more invested in him. I get what you're saying,
He left. Like, you know what? It's weird. It's like, to me, it's like a reinvestment. What are you invested in now? You were invested in that second-round pick. He left. Now you're reinvested in Sky Moore. I guess if anything, you're invested more, but that depends on how you look at it.
That's what I'm saying. They're more invested in Sky Moore.
No, I'm saying
second-round pick.
I view them as separate versus you're like, well, they're invested not only a second-round pick in McCole Hardman.
No, I'm talking about Sky Moore, not McCole Hardman.
Oh, yeah, Sky Moore. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Sky Moore, they literally invested a homegrown second-round pick. Toney, they're invested because of maybe what they were selling him to be, but he wasn't their initial draft pick. I think they're more. I know they traded for Toney, but I think they're still more invested in year 2 now. Sky Moore, they
got
just
2 more years
him.
of control. The extra thing in there. I'm not saying I don't think they're ever going to just stop throwing this or stop using Sky Moore in the field. I think they view him as the outside guy to just run routes with MVS. But I'll take Toney. I mean, at this point, the winner might be the person who can just take an 80-yard touchdown once. And if you're going to force me to choose the guy who can take an 80-yard touchdown once, I'll take Toney.
Yeah, how about this weekend in Germany, please? One of you. Be great.
It would be, you know what, that would be nice. To talk about Tyreek Hill having like 63 yards and then either Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore
having their best game of the season.
Almost equaling their season total. Sky Moore's got 168 yards total. He's got 109 as Kadarius Toney. So
crazier things have happened in the NFL. I mean, it truly would not stun me if the Chiefs have their best offensive performance of the season, and Sky Moore has a big touchdown catch contested just because it's weird. Couldn't make the open one and hope maybe a contested catch. Like, weird. There's no reason to believe that should happen, but that's the NFL.
Yeah,
that's why it's great.
Especially because I've never seen Sky Moore make a contested catch.
Yeah, I just like that's the crazy stuff.
Capable
that's why we
then?
love the league.
I think it is nice too. Sky did. I mean, he took ownership of it yesterday, as you would expect, and say, "Look, I got to be better." You know, whenever opportunities come, I gotta. At least he took it on the chin, you know, and admitted that he does have to be better. I still think I would take Sky in terms of this, just because he's getting more usage.
Kadarius Toney
He's
Island.
got more
That's
opportunities, man.
In terms of usage, he's getting used. He's getting more opportunities to catch the ball. So
we'll ask that same question to Danan Hughes coming up in about a half hour or so. Former Chiefs wide receiver Danan Hughes going to join us at 11 o'clock. Up next, though, we mentioned this, Miami and the competition they faced and how they have fared. A lot of questions still remain with them. We'll tell you how we think this game can change it all as well.
Chiefs fans, it's Creed Humphrey.
One on what's trending before we hear our conversation with Danan Hughes again, and he tells us what the Chiefs have to do on Sunday against the Dolphins. Good news on the injury front. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, this part not so much, is ill, but the good news is that Willie Gay is back at practice after missing yesterday. So that's the good news there. Also, Jerick McKinnon practicing, so two guys that were not available, but Clyde is ill. Hopefully it's just a cold flu, something like that, and he's good to go.
Got me worried after that IR stent question yesterday for Willie Gay that this was going to be kind of a longer-term injury all of a sudden. At least he's back at practice today. We don't know if he'll play on Sunday yet. That would obviously be big if he can. But Drew Tranquil's going to play. Chanel, they have to kind of make do until Nick Bolton comes back. But Willie Gay obviously having an incredible year for the Chiefs this year. You should like him back. There's no doubt. Next up on What's Trending, Kansas City Royals shortstop Bobby Witt Jr., Salvador Perez, the two Royals to be named to American League finalists for the 2023 Silver Slugger Awards. Bobby's got a real good shot at winning it. I'm guessing Salvi won't. He missed way too many games, probably, in order to probably get that award, but let's just face it, he's still one of the best hitting catchers in all of baseball. The most interesting thing with Salvi this offseason is Chicago going to make another play for the guy, or anybody in Major League Baseball going to make another play for this guy? If this is the season they were going to, if they were going to ever trade Salvi, this feels like the offseason in which it would occur. They have already made an offseason move, by the way. They just DFA'd Nate Eaton, started 30 games for him this year, a little over 60 games last year for him, and then reactivate a bunch of guys off of the 60-day injured list, which meant Jake Brands, Vinny Pasquantino, guys who are still technically hurt, but they've got the room on the 60 to add him back into the fold. Yeah. Those guys have all been reactivated today.
Bunch of names, yeah. Chris Bubich was part of that. And
guys who are still recovering from their injuries, but can be put back on the 60 now.
Next up on What's Trending, college basketball. Believe it or not, it is already underway, at least exhibition hoops last night, both in Manhattan and in Lawrence. K-State took down Emporia State with a 102-68 win. Cam Carter finished the game with a game high, 20 points and 3 assists. They go out to Las Vegas on Monday to kick off the season with regular season action against USC. That's obviously Bronny's on the team. I don't know the latest on where things stand. He obviously had the serious health scare. I don't know. Maybe he is practicing. The whole buildup for that was going to be, Bronny's first game in college is going to be against K-State. I haven't followed up enough to see yet where things are if you want to look it up.
As of September. No, that's September. That's an old article. Okay, well, I don't know.
We'll find out. But anyway, so that and then KU in Lawrence last night defeated Fort Hays State.
Last article I see on it's almost a month ago, and it says he intends to play.
Okay, good.
For USC this year, so.
Good. So 73-55 exhibition win over Fort Hays State.
Next up on What's Trending, it is Jimmy Garoppolo's birthday. The reason why I know that is...
Happy birthday.
The Raiders sent out a tweet that said, just us wishing our guy Jimmy Garoppolo happy birthday. The reason why I'm pointing this out is they benched him yesterday. They named Aiden O'Connell the starter after letting everyone else go off of their front office, seemingly. Benched Jimmy Garoppolo and then still sent out the old happy birthday tweet. Dude, you got to just...
You can't say happy birthday these days anymore. Once someone loses their job, you can't say happy birthday.
That one from the drafts. If they bump me tonight, I don't want 6'10" sending out the happy birthday tweet to me, okay?
But here's the difference.
All right? I don't want... If I get demoted the day before... Don't send out the happy birthday tweet. 6 months later, we're having a different conversation.
I was going to say,
day after,
teams send out happy birthday tweets all the time. 6'10" doesn't send out happy birthday tweets, so that'd be weird if they did that to begin with.
Delete the draft. They
had to know what the replies were going to be. I don't think it's a big deal. You only do it because you know what the replies are going to be. Like, I don't think it's bad that an organization wants to say happy birthday to somebody even if they demoted them. But the problem is, it's the social media reaction is why you can't send it out, right?
Yeah, there's no way that you should have sent that.
Cody's going to be in charge of sending out happy birthday tweets for all 6'10" employees going forward. And that way it just becomes the norm. Now, just the 6'10" employees, not the whole cluster. Just 6'10". Okay. Just 6'10" on-air people if you want.
I just want to make sure. On air?
Just on air.
Not the... I feel part-timers, they don't want a happy birthday.
Fine. You can do that.
They have tweets still up. The replies are very good.
That's what's trending, by the way. You're on Cody and Gold.
Literally, one of the Photoshops just says, happy birthday. It's got a big bow on it, and it's a big silver bench.
Ooh.
What do you think the replies are going to be?
Yeah,
the other one is just, Andy throwing away Woody like the toilet says, I don't want to play with you anymore. If you want to enjoy yourself, go look at the
September 1st, Kansas will launch sports betting.
That's my birthday.
We know when your birthday is, man. We got it. We got it figured
Not a
out.
mystery on this show.
Earlier today, we had a chance to catch up with former Chiefs wide receiver Danan Hughes. He'll be part of the broadcast on the Chiefs radio network this Sunday morning when the Chiefs take on the Dolphins. We, of course, wanted to get his perspective on what the Chiefs have to do against Tyreek Hill, but also started our conversation with Danan asking him if he's ever been to Germany and is he excited for the trip?
Venus Schnitzel. That's the only thing I know so far, guys.
That's good enough. You'll be fine then with that.
Heineken. I know that too.
I was gonna say you got a long flight to brush up on your German.
Yes, I got the YouTube video of the things I need to know, 20 different things that I should be prepared for over there. So I'm doing some homework, just like I'm doing it on the game. So yeah, it's gonna be fun. Looking forward to the trip. 9.5-hour flight.
Ooh.
So that should be interesting. Other than that, it's football as usual, so it should be fun.
Do you think you'll be able to sleep? Like, are you good about sleeping on planes, or is this one of those where you got to have videos and stuff because you just won't be able to fall asleep?
I absolutely fall asleep. I could fall asleep and get a great sleep from here to St. Louis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So wow. Definitely overseas. So I have no problem. Josh Klingler and I, we are sleepers on the plane. It will not be an issue, especially since it's an overnight flight. It will absolutely not be an issue for me to fall asleep. I did upload some episodes of some shows I'm watching and movies, but I would be hard pressed to believe that I'm even going to get to them.
Danan, when you look at the wide receiver matchup, obviously with Tyreek Hill, what is considered a win with him anymore? He's got 1,000 yards on the season through 8 games. Is it just as simple as if he doesn't get a 50-yard touchdown, you're good?
No, I think, part of me wonders, okay, is this kind of a Jordan rules game? Is he the Michael Jordan where he's going to get his, we just need to stop everybody else? Or is it one of those deals where there have been defenses that have been successful against him? And that success probably is somewhere around 5 or 6 catches for 60 yards, hopefully not a touchdown, not take the top off the defense. That, to me, would be an extreme success. But I feel like our young guys, as long as they don't get caught, thinking that's Tyreek Hill. And I remember playing against, big-time players. You're playing against Deion Sanders. You're playing against, a lot of great players in the NFL. And you have to be able to box it out. You have to be able to carve it out of your brain that you're playing against an elite player and just go out there and play your game. I feel confident in our guys. I feel like the strength, you can make an argument that the strength of our defense at this point has been the defensive backfield. We haven't allowed too many big plays. And I feel like even coming after the Denver Broncos game where L'Jarius Sneed had some issues, had some penalties, didn't play his best game. I feel like that is momentum enough, and it can open up the door for them to have a lockdown type of game against this dangerous wide receiver crew.
On the flip side, the Chiefs wide receiver room, it's the talk of the week. It's really been the talk of the season. What's it like being in that room? I'm sure you guys had some weeks back when you were playing where it was a rough go for the wide receivers, and everybody in town is saying you suck and that they should go trade for guys. What does that do? Is that just strictly a motivation thing, or does that also cause some issues for the room?
It definitely should be a motivation. And, I played with a great quarterback, Joe Montana, and I remember being in that wide receiver room with the mindset of don't be the one. Don't be the one that causes us issue. Don't be the one that causes any undue spotlight on Joe. And that's the kind of mindset these guys have to have, is that, yeah, it's all fun and games with the pregame pictures and the dances and the handshakes and all that stuff. That's all great. But when it comes down, what it comes down to it is we can't allow the greatest quarterback in the game to look bad. We can't allow us to be the story on why his greatness is not shown. And that's a personal thing. That's one of those deals where you look in the mirror and you got to say, you know what, whatever I got to do, whatever I've had to do this week after practice, before practice, in meetings, I can't allow that I can't allow anything to sully Patrick Mahomes like we did last week in Denver. Everybody knows, the wide receivers have as big egos or maybe even bigger egos than most other players on the field. We also know we take a lot of pride in our craft. That's what has to be at the forefront this week. It has to be about like what they saw last week, what they've seen periodically through this season, leading the NFL in drops, and just being the story can't be something that we carry on any further. And what better place to do it than going head-to-head against Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and those guys.
Dane and I asked them a question earlier because I was thinking about it myself. I know the opportunity's been more in Sky Moore's lap to this point, but if I asked you if Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney finished with more receiving yardage the rest of the way, who do you think the answer is?
Sky Moore. And part of the reason why I say that is I haven't seen the vertical abilities of Kadarius Toney work in this offense yet. Now, do I feel like he can? Yes. But we haven't seen, and I think we've seen a sample size, a good enough sample size to ask for that, to wonder about it, is can he line up outside the numbers and run a hook route, comeback route, take off, post corner, Dino route, all of those different routes that are on that route tree. Have we seen Kadarius Toney line up on the outside edge of the numbers, middle numbers, inside edge of the numbers, and run those routes? And the answer is no. So either, and I don't think it's a can't, it just hasn't. So I feel like that's the growth process. While we've seen Sky Moore run those routes, we've seen him be successful in those routes, especially at the end of last year. So answering the question, I would say Sky Moore right now until I see more from not just the motion and shift and the flip bone and lining up in the backfield and the whirly burl motion. All that stuff is great, but some of it is smoke and mirrors because as a wide receiver, to me, you have to have the ability to line up on the line of scrimmage and beat the guy in front of you vertically.
Dan, why is it, though, like you're right, all of that's true, that Toney hasn't shown any of that. Why were the Chiefs talking about him this offseason like they'd already decided he could do that? Like they were making it sound like in practice, Danan, he was more than capable of that. When the regular season rolled around, they weren't using him that way at all.
Yeah, I don't know that answer. I really don't. I know that there are times where guys showcase things in OTAs and training camp that make you think, okay, wow, we got something here. And then for whatever reason, it doesn't really translate when the season comes around, dealing with injuries as well. Also, it might be that other guys, and this is maybe a component of this offense that I've seen in past years, that guys get fit into a package. They get fit into a slot because other guys might be better. It might be possible that Justin Watson and MVS and Rashee Rice are better vertical receivers. So do you take those guys out of certain positions and situations for the sake of putting who might be the fourth best guy running a curl route or the fourth best guy running a deep in because you want to fit him in somewhere? Those are the questions that I just don't know the answers to. But I can tell you there's never been a receiver that has had success without being able to line up and go vertical. Remember, Tyreek Hill, even early in his career, there was a lot of motions, a lot of jet sweeps, a lot of different things going sideline to sideline. But what we saw in his greatness was when it was time to line up in the slot against the Buffalo Bills and run a 12-yard in and take it to the house in the playoffs, he did that. When it was time to run fourth down against the Baltimore Ravens, and Patrick threw the ball across his body, across the field with three defenders, Tyreek Hill came down with the ball. Those are the things that separate you as a wide receiver. Heck, we're seeing that from Justin Watson coming back from an elbow injury, and he's running corner routes like he's a top receiver. Okay, great. Let's see some of that from Kadarius Toney. And I don't know why we haven't seen that on a consistent basis yet.
We're talking to Danan Hughes, former Chiefs wide receiver. He'll be part of the broadcast on Sunday morning from Frankfurt, Germany on the Chiefs radio network. Isaiah Pacheco, Danan, only got eight carries in the game against Denver. And when you're looking at that, I know they're never going to be run first. Nobody's saying they should be run first or anything like that. But that was surprising to me. I feel like there still is a little bit of the running game that can help them through this passing game struggle right now.
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like this might be the perfect game to show that, because kind of like what teams have tried to do to us, what has been the best defense against this Chiefs offense since Patrick Mahomes has taken over? It's usually the other team's offense staying on the field a long time. And the way you do that is by the run game. Well, now we've kind of met a team that almost mirrors us offensively. And it would behoove us to maybe employ some of that by utilizing the run game a little bit more. We have at times been a little bit more predictable, where we may run the ball on first down, not get a whole bunch, and then it's airing it out. And maybe keeping the defense off kilter just a bit by running the ball on first and second down might work. And this could be the game to do so, to keep that offense cooling on the sideline with a healthy mix, more of a mix of run and pass for us, would help the offensive lineman out, would help the protection out, would help the clock, time of possession. So I feel like this is a perfect game to maybe open up the offense and the run game a little bit more. And Isaiah Pacheco will be chomping at the bit to have those opportunities. I'd like to see him carry the ball, or maybe an assortment of he and CEH and Jerick McKinnon 20 times. That might be a lot, but I feel like this could be a game that we could see that.
Well, safe travels, man. Appreciate you giving us some time. Are you going to be able to stay a few days after, or are you coming right back?
Coming right back.
Okay.
Sleeping mostly all the way, I would assume. But I'll be back here late Sunday night, early Monday morning.
All right, so you'll be back at it, players only, next Thursday night, right?
Oh,
sorry, I'm speaking
actually,
too soon.
I don't
My
think
fault.
so. Yeah, because it's right before the bye week. So I think we're off, then back on, then off again for Thanksgiving. So this month for players only is a little bit hit or miss because of the bye week and the holiday. But we'll be back strong when we get on.
All right, man. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks a lot.
So that was our earlier conversation with Danan Hughes, who, as you heard there, is on his way to Germany later today. We'll be back at it, and then in a couple weeks, the players only will start back up. Normally Thursday nights throughout the football season, he has Chiefs alums and others stop by to talk from a players only perspective on the Chiefs. And in this case, we were getting his thoughts on Tyreek Hill and this wide receiver room. He also said there, I asked him about just Pacheco, 8 touches, like, You can run the ball a little bit more, and you want to fix some of these issues. I do think that is part of the solution.
Well, I mean, especially when it's effective, and he has been effective this year overall, Isaiah Pacheco. The one that frustrates you last week is that's the league's worst run defense. The game wasn't 2 scores till like way later in the game. So there was no reason to abandon the run and not even try it against Denver. They weren't having these like massive breakaway plays, but he averaged 5 yards a carry in the game.
And
8 for 40. It's very weird.
And as he said, you can kind of use it for possession purposes, and be able to
keep Miami off the field for half a second, maybe.
Maybe you don't
give your defense a breather.
Maybe your offense isn't able to right this second get in a 35-35 type of shootout. Perhaps you need this to be in the 20s. I don't know. It's normally not what we say involving the Chiefs, but maybe that's what it's going to take.
I'm going to need someone to explain. Down the road, fine, if they don't want to give me the answer now. But 10 years from now, will someone in the Chiefs front office explain to me why they went banging down the door of every single national media person in the entire NFL, praising Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, only to have like 220 yards combined through 8 games? What did you see? What did you see then that you're not willing to use now? Like, it doesn't make sense. This is way more gushing than normal, right? Like, training camp, I even understand. Like, there's some part of it. But, I mean, Gold, they were making it seem like they had 2 number 1 wide receivers. I bought into Sky. Everyone hits their wagon to the wrong wide receiver. Doesn't really matter. It shows. Gold, you were all in on Rasheed Rice. Or not Rasheed Rice. You're all in on Richie James. Not great.
Still give him time to give him some playing time, man.
Not great.
It's time.
Sky Moore. Not great.
It's time for Richie James to get a chance again once he comes back from INR.
He practiced today, according to Pete Sweeney.
Yeah.
He's out there working.
Good. hilarious if somehow in the back half of the season he comes back and he ends up being effective for them. I'll laugh.
I'll give you credit if for
I'll
some
laugh.
reason it works
I'll
out
laugh
that
about
way.
that one.
I just remember me trying to offer you a chance to sell your stock.
I
and
said
then
no, and he got hurt the next
was on
day.
The injured reserve the next day.
Not good. Tomorrow, it's a Red Friday here in Kansas City and on Cody and Gold. Pete Sweeney's going to join us. We'll have Kling join us from Frankfurt, Germany. We'll also have someone who covers the Chiefs from Germany on a regular basis. A big influence in Germany when it comes to the Chiefs, and Daniel Jensen.
Das Kingdom
podcast. It's tomorrow on the show. We'll also give away some pizza. Get set for Chiefs, Dolphins on a Red Friday. Up next, though, C-Dot's got you on the drive with Rob right here on 610.
Cody and Gold.